Hello defenders, it's day 973 of Russia's failing invasion of Ukraine. France may give its multi-purpose Mirage aircraft to Ukraine. The US is not ready to invite us to the NATO. Antonio Guterres visited Russia. Latvia shuts down the propagandist Russian channels. And Ukrainian kids returned from the Russian captivity. Let's talk about the most important updates right now. According to the French media Le Tribune, 3 multi-purpose French aircraft Mirage will join the Ukrainian Air Force in 2025 as part of the military aid package. Even despite 3 is not 30, but these aircraft will help a lot, considering that they can be equipped not only with air-to-air missiles with a range of 60 kilometers, but also guided bombs and cruise missiles such as Scalp EG. It means not only French aircraft can be used to intercept the kamikaze drones and cruise missiles, but also provide close air support at the front line and strike targets located deeper in the Russian rear. As a tasty bonus, the electronic warfare equipment will also be installed on those aircraft, and it's expected that all the following Mirage fighters will have the same configuration. Gillian Smith, the US ambassador to NATO, expressed her concern about the EU attempting to prioritize buying the European weapons. With all respect to the ambassador, Europeans have concerns that at some point they will be left without any weapons whatsoever, facing the potential return of Donald Trump, who promised to quit NATO, which, by the way, will make one internationally wanted war criminal extremely happy. I mean, no wonder every Russian bot farm nowadays supports Donald Trump, because nobody else has ever promised Putin such a gift, getting rid of the only power keeping Russian tanks away from Warsaw, Paris, and Berlin. The ambassador also stated that the US is not ready to extend an invitation for Ukraine to join NATO. She said, "The alliance has not to date reached the point when it's prepared to offer membership or an invitation to Ukraine." And she added that our intent is to keep moving them closer to NATO. Dear viewers, if you wanted to know the main reason why Russia attacked Ukraine, it's not because we wanted to become NATO. It's because Ukraine wasn't gonna be accepted. There are no historic cases of Russia openly attacking a NATO country because NATO can fight back really well. Now, if you take countries like Chechnya, Georgia, Syria, Ukraine, you see what I'm talking about. The very idea behind the NATO alliance was to protect the democratic countries from the armies of the Warsaw Pact directly controlled by Kremlin. Nowadays, when Kremlin is much weaker than in the times of the Soviet Union, NATO countries are facing a dilemma: how to protect democratic world from Kremlin, who wants to destroy it. So far, they chose to sacrifice the non-NATO members in order to evade the war on the NATO territory. But because Putin really wants this war to happen, it seems like a temporary solution. The war will start when democracies who forgot why they even need to stick together against the bigger threat begin quitting NATO one by one. So what's the solution? Well, there is a pretty much simple solution which won't require building a fuckload of military factories. The only thing that can save NATO from collapse, followed by the Russian invasion, is creating an effective shield against the Russian disinformation. This is something people should understand. The collapse of the alliance will only be possible if NATO loses the war of information. This is extremely important to understand. Informational security is your savior. For example, Latvia keeps showing a good example of protecting freedom of speech by blocking the channels of hate speech. 17 toxic websites used by the Russian terrorists to brainwash Latvian people got blocked in the country. These resources were sharing distorted information, justifying the Russian war crimes, and spreading their usual bullshit about the holy path of the God's chosen Russian race. You probably remember that in 2022 both the Parliamentary Assembly of the European Council and NATO Assembly recognized Russia a terrorist regime. I mean, of course you remember, because this information is in the closing titles of each update I have on this channel. These decisions were made because, unlike the UN, the countries of NATO and EU have balls. A beautiful proof of that is the recent visit of Antonio Guterres, the Secretary General of the United Nations, to the terrorist country, which took place yesterday in the Russian city of Kazan during the summit of BRICS. The Russian propagandists who keep claiming that they don't need the rest of the world because it's Nazi and gay, by the way, simultaneously, couldn't expect a better gift than a visit of a General Secretary of the United Nations. It is reported that Guterres tasted the Russian karavai and chak-chak, probably some vodka too, I mean, of course, it's Russia after all. But why did he even go there? So, according to Guterres himself, it's because BRICS is such a big organization. Almost half of the world's population is in the BRICS. Fun fact is that earlier this year, Mr. Guterres rejected the invitation to join the Ukrainian Peace Summit in Switzerland. At the same time, Mr. Guterres comes from Portugal. What do we know about Portugal? We know that some of the biggest Russian influencing organizations, the Russian World Foundation, that is known for globally promoting the Russian agenda through a network of institutions, has built an extremely strong presence in Portugal. This foundation, which I guarantee is run by the best Russian officers of the External Intelligence Service, has had study centers at 3 different Portuguese universities for years. This is the classic case of Russians establishing their presence in a foreign country to spread disinformation and recruit spies. My dear viewers, there is a chance that some of those Russian institutions are operating in your country as well. That's if you ever wanted to know where do all those funny people with Russian flags on your streets come from. And to think about it, terror Russia is so funny. I mean, imagine if the money spent on those undercover influence centers were invested in, I don't know, butter. Why butter, you ask me? Well, it's because, according to the Russian media, the Russian superpower is running out of butter, and it seems like in the nearest future the butter prices will require the state's regulation. You probably wonder how come Russians first ran out of sugar, then chicken, then logically eggs, and now butter. Well, the answer is simple. It's because they really wanted to invade Ukraine so much so they would abandon food for a chance to die somewhere in Avdiivka. No time to eat, товарищи. We have to build more tanks. And just today, 6 Ukrainian children were returned from the Russian-occupied territories of Ukraine. The Office of President of Ukraine reported that the kids returned together with their mothers from the occupied Crimea, Kherson, and Zaporizhia oblasts. These 6 lives are saved so far while Ukraine keeps fighting for its independence. With that, my friends, I wish you all a beautiful day. Please share your thoughts in the commentaries. I'm Operator Starsky. As always, be safe.